So this is a book by James Scott. It's an excellent book, by the way, called Seeing Like a State. And he's trying to explain to us how bureaucracies work, how governments function. And for him, governments actually create more problems than they solve. Why? Well, he lists 4 reasons. The first is that all they care about is the administrative ordering of nature and society. So another way of saying this is a bureaucracy is a machine. It's a hierarchy. It's static. It's mechanical. But society is like a forest. It's diverse. It's an ecosystem. It's organic. For a state to exist, it must turn the forest into a machine like itself. So it destroys diversity. It destroys spontaneity. It destroys imagination, okay? All right, so let's use an example of this, all right? So my question to you is like, who are you? Can you tell us who are you? Like who are you as a person? Tell us who you are as a person. Yeah, just use 1 or 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Who are you as a person?
Hi, my name is Banker, and I grew up in Beijing. And I came to this school in 2024, last year. And
okay, wrong. Okay, that's not the correct answer. The correct answer is you're a teenage boy.
Oh.
Okay, that's the correct answer. All right, you believe that you are an individual with individual aspirations, ambitions, with a past, with a history. The state doesn't care. The state needs to classify you in a way that can use you. Okay. You're a teenage boy, which means like 2 years' time, you can be employed in a factory. Or I can send you to war. Okay, that's all I care about. Okay, I don't care about your name. I don't care about who you are. I don't care who your parents are. I don't care about your past. I don't care what you like. All I care about is the fact that you are a teenage boy. And therefore, I can exploit you for labor. Okay, that's how states think. Okay, so the bureaucratization of society. Second is the idea of high modernist ideology. So because the state is a monopoly, the bureaucracy is a monopoly, it becomes arrogant, it has hubris, it's overconfident, and it wants to impose its ideology on everyone else. It believes that through its own planning, it can achieve paradise. Okay? So it becomes authoritarian, meaning it refuses to listen to criticism, to feedback, to questions. It is not open to debate. It imposes its will on people. Okay, which creates a weak civil society. And if as an organization you're not getting feedback, you're not allowing for openness, then you will wither and die. Okay? And that's why states, governments will always fail in the end. Okay, so he uses 2 examples. The first example is what happened in the late 19th century Germany. So in Germany, there's lots of forests. And the state is thinking of ways, how can we best monetize the resource of the forest? Well, there's certain trees that you can cut down for lumber, right? The problem is that in a forest, most space is occupied by useless shrubs or greenery or trees. Okay? So their bright idea is, you know what? Here's a simple solution. We'll burn down the forest and just plant trees that we can harvest for lumber. Right? Brilliant. That's a brilliant use of space. It's more efficient. The problem, though, is that when you do that, the trees are now susceptible to disease, to weather changes. A forest is resilient because it's diverse. Okay? So this is what Scott says. Monocultures are, as a rule, more fragile and hence more vulnerable to the stress of disease and weather than polycultures are. Any unmanaged forest may experience stress from storms, disease, drought, fragile soil, or severe cold. A diverse, complex forest, however, with its many species of trees, its full complement of birds, insects, and mammals is far more resilient, far more able to withstand and recover from such injuries than pure stands. So nature has diversity because it allows for resilience. Okay? Some part of the forest can die, but the rest of the forest will recover from anything, whether it's disease or drought or weather. Okay? And we humans are the same way. If you let humans do whatever they want, we are resilient. So some communities might die off, but other communities will adapt. The problem with a state, with a government, is that it refuses, it sees diversity as an enemy. Okay, so if there's a natural disaster, it's very likely that a lot more people die off than otherwise, okay? Another example is forced communism in Tanzania. Okay, so it's a top-down system. And their idea is, okay, these farmers have their little small farms and they grow their crops, but that's not efficient. What if we just got all the farmers together and had coffee? And they all, had coffee or wheat or whatever. And then we can sell this to other countries. Okay? And of course, you can imagine that this will lead to starvation, because it's the same principle as the forest. If there's a weather crisis or if there's a disease, then all your crops die off and then your people die off. Okay? What these planners carried in their mind's eye was a certain aesthetic, what one might call a visual codification of modern rural production and community life. Okay? So the problem with bureaucrats is they have no imagination. Everything to them has to be mapped out. They like things that can be mapped out, that can be a blueprint, okay? They like to brag about these things because that's how they see the world. But real world, nature requires diversity, it requires organic, okay? All right, so he gives examples of how the state transforms society. So before, what would happen is that people would just come together and they would organize their communities according to their needs. Okay, it's a bottom-up process, but the state wants to create permanent cities where people are just in one place all the time, right? That's why you have cities. Before, what's natural is just for people to live on small farms and share stuff with other people, to trade with each other. The problem with this is the state cannot tax you. So what the state does is it brings you to cities, makes you work in a factory so it can tax you. Okay? The point of giving you a wage is so it can tax you, to exploit you. Property. Before, it was very common for people to just share property together. Okay? Now, it's all owned and controlled by the state. Resources are the same thing. Before, people just used resources according to their needs. But now the state wants to centralize these resources. Okay, so it can tax and exploit people properly. Okay, so that's what a state bureaucracy does. So what are the consequences of the over-bureaucratization of society? Well, what's happening in America is that while consumer goods like cars, clothing, and cell phones are going down, what's going up are hospital services, schooling, okay, housing. Why? Because these are monopolies controlled by bureaucrats, right? So what's happening is with the over-bureaucratization of society, it's almost impossible for middle-class people, ordinary people, to have a good life now. Okay? Here's another really interesting chart. The black shows you the growth in the stock market, okay? And you think, wow, this is a good thing. Okay? The problem is, first of all, only 10% of people in the United States control most of the stocks, over 90% of the stocks. The other issue is this. The other issue is, if you look at prices, yeah, it's gone up. But if you look at stocks as units of gold, if you use gold to buy stocks, guess what? The price of stocks have gone down. That's a blue, okay? If you use money to buy stocks, it goes up. But if you use gold to buy stocks, it goes down. What this is telling us, okay, very simple, is we are living in a lie. All this wealth generation, it's all a lie. It's not real. We just think it's real. We're living in a fairyland created by bureaucrats to fool us to believe that we are prosperous. Okay, does that make sense? The amount of gold that you can buy with stocks has gone down. Okay? Okay, so the blue is the gold, the black is money. The money is worthless. Okay? All right. Another problem that bureaucratization has created is people don't want to work anymore. So in America, this is called quiet quitting. In China, it's called 躺平 or 摆烂. Okay? Lying flat, let it rot. People don't want to work anymore. Why? Because it's pointless to work in a bureaucracy, right? Leaders don't care. The organization doesn't need you. You are alienated. You are told what to do and you cannot negotiate. You cannot rise within the bureaucracy. You're being asked to work too much. You feel as though you're just a machine. Okay? And so the way you rebel is lying flat, okay, or quiet quitting. Okay? So your over-bureaucratization of society means that people now have become more lazy, more complacent, more indifferent. And what this also means is that democracy is declining because people's voice, people's power is declining, okay? So you can see that people feel as though democracy is in the decline. In fact, experts estimate that democracy, the capacity for people to participate in politics, the capacity for people to influence politics has declined rapidly these past 10 years, okay? So we are living in a world that is becoming more and more bureaucratic, and it's killing us.